All right, folks, I'm here with Melissa Rodwell. She's the force behind a company called Breed, and we're going to talk about where that name came from and how she sort of put this whole thing together. They're kind of on the leading edge of online fashion photography and that sort of movement. So we're going to talk all about that, learn about Melissa's background, where things are today, where it's going, all that stuff. So, Melissa, welcome to This Week in Photo.
Hi there, Frederick. How are you? Thank you.
It's good to have you. It's good to thank you for coming on. So
You're most welcome.
Let's dive right into this. So, Melissa, who is Melissa? You're a force obviously behind the scenes and probably in front of the scenes as well at Breed. But what drives you to create this stuff?
Okay, well, I decided to become a fashion photographer when I was 17, so that was a long, long time ago.
Yeah.
And I've been shooting professionally since 1987, and I've always only done fashion photography. So it's sort of my purpose, what I believe I'm meant to do. I just had a really great long career as a fashion photographer. And in 2008, it was suggested to me to start a blog about my experience and to educate people on, sort of what it takes to become a fashion photographer, what has made me stay in the business for so long, do some behind the scene videos of my shoots and educate people on lighting and just every aspect of the industry.
Yeah.
And the blog did very well, very, very quickly. It took off immediately. There was nothing like it online at that time. And after doing, I did the blog from 2008 through the end of 2012. I always had a bigger vision for the blog and to take it to a whole different level. And the person I had partnered with didn't really want to go there with me. I mean, he was an actor and wanted to do different things. So I had met Marius Troy, who was, or I don't know if he still has it, but he owned Ben Trovato, which was a great online fashion magazine, and he published stories from up-and-coming aspiring fashion photographers as well as established photographers like myself. And him and I spoke a little bit and had a few meetings, and then we decided that we would take what was then the fashion photography blog and expand it to what my vision was. And where the name Breed came up with was just him and I sitting down one morning over coffee and trying to come up with a good name, and Nirvana's Breed song came to mind, and it's about breeding the next generation of fashion photographers. We're a community, we're a tribe of emerging, aspiring fashion photographers trying to break into this, very competitive, very difficult industry.
Yeah.
And we want to provide them with the best knowledge and the real knowledge, and no smoke and mirrors. That this is what it is. This is what it takes, and do you have what it takes to make it?
Yeah, that's interesting because that's cool. I know that song very well, the Breed song. So
Yeah.
so and that's a great name, by the way. That's like right up there with Richard Branson and Virgin, right? So It has that sort of triple entendre thing going on there. It's a little risky, but then it's cool. I like it.
It's cool for me too because I had the pleasure of knowing Kurt Cobain a little bit when he was alive, obviously, and so it has sort of a tender spot with me as well.
Yeah.
So I love the name, but yeah, it's good. Like Virgin, that's awesome.
It is. It's perfect.
Good
Breed Airlines is on the way, right?
Hey, it's coming soon.
Yeah, why not? So this is cool. You mentioned one of the things that when I talk to fashion photographers on the show, I like to get a feel for, what it took to get to be a fashion photographer. And even to put a finer point on it, how do you say you are a fashion photographer? Can you just one day pull out, go to B&H, get your camera, and then go find some pretty girls to shoot on the streets of New York City and just say, hey, I'm a fashion photographer now? Or in other words, what is the rite of passage to getting there?
Well, I mean, I think in these days, people are doing that. They're going and getting a camera and shooting their pretty friend and calling themselves a fashion photographer. I think you can call yourself a fashion photographer when you're earning your income solely on fashion photography.
Mm-hmm. That's a really
when
good
your
point.
source of income is coming from fashion photography jobs.
So if the IRS says you're a fashion photographer, you're a fashion photographer.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
I love that. Yeah, the same thing goes for professional photography too. If you just say, I'm a professional photographer, most of your income better be coming from photographer, or else you may be really good, but you're still an amateur or an advanced amateur until you're
Right.
making you're paying your mortgage and your kids' college fund through photography.
Yeah, if you've got a really great job at Google, and you're making six figures a year, and you're taking pictures on the weekend, I still consider that a hobbyist and not
Yeah.
a professional photographer.
Yeah.
No offense, you're right. The pictures might be very good, but
Yeah.
you're making
Yeah.
your money from another source of income. So
Yeah, absolutely. The word amateur I think has a bad rap, right? Because
sure.
many people think amateur means that you are somehow substandard, and it
Mm,
doesn't. Because I know lots of amateur quote photographers that are better than pros because
mm,
they can spend more time on it. They're not tied to that dollars for hours metric, right? You can spend
right.
all day long on one shot if you
Right.
want.
Right. And put money towards it as well, because
Yeah.
you've got some income.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
So let's talk about just the business of it a little bit, or the back end. So a day in the life. You said when you first started out, you were sort of shepherding photographers and teaching them how to become a fashion photographer, lighting, and all that stuff. In your time doing that, what's the kind of the reoccurring theme that people get wrong in this stuff? Is it they don't understand how to work with models? They don't understand how to find models. They're shy and don't know how to interact, or they don't have business sense. What would you say is, if there's one thing that you'd point to as like, a
Mm.
lot of photographers are afflicted with this thing?
I have to say, like the younger generation, there sort of seems to be this race to make it at a very young age.
Hmm.
There's a handful of photographers that, sort of have become quite successful by the age of 21. And I mean, it's so few and far between, but there seems to be this race, instead of understanding that photography is a creative art form like anything else,
Hmm.
and you need to develop an eye. You need to develop your eye to be able to see in order to capture light and to understand light, and to compose, and to also capture the moment. That all takes time. It takes taking a ton of photographs
Yeah.
to be able to develop your eye, and I think that's what they're missing. They spend too much time on Photoshop. They take a mediocre photograph, they fix it up in Photoshop, they put it on Instagram. If the girl's half nude, they get 10,000 likes, and then they think they've made it,
Yeah.
and they haven't,
Yeah.
because there's no emotion coming out of that photograph. That's just, they tricked it out.
Yeah.
They put a Band-Aid on a poorly lit, sort of not that great composed photo.
Yeah. Yeah. A lipstick on a pig, right?
Yeah, I mean, if you're young and you really want to make it, you should be shooting 4 to 5 times a week. And you should be shooting all the time.
Yeah.
You should be shooting in your sleep.
Wow.
I certainly did. I mean, I just lived and breathed it constantly. And I've been shooting over professionally, 30 years, and non-professionally like 34, 37 years. So like, I've taken a ton of photos in my time. And I think that people look at my work, young people look at my work, and they go, well, I want to be as good as you. And how do I do this the quick route? Well, I mean, there isn't. I've been doing this a long time.
Yeah, and I wonder about that, and not to take us off track too much, but I wonder about I've been shooting for 30 years too, roughly in that range. And when I learned and first got excited about photography, it was film, obviously. And,
Right.
I was in the military, and the first thing we started learning was about light and, the properties of light. We didn't even touch a camera for like the first 2 months. We're
Right.
learning about light and the science of photography. And then you
Yeah.
start moving into actually the optics of lenses and all that stuff. So that
Right.
foundational stuff, I wonder, is it possible to get good? I mean, obviously it is possible to get good these days, but are the hurdles it's a double-edged sword, because you have the internet, which makes things so much easier to distribute your work and get likes, like you said, and
Right.
get sort of hollow calorie adoration from people.
Mm-hmm.
versus in the old days it was you really had to know the craft down to the photon level in order
Right.
to call yourself a photographer.
Right.
What advice would you give, quote, kids today that are trying to learn this stuff other than fast tracking and trying to, I want to get good fast, I want to be Melissa tomorrow? How do they, what are the steps that they can take to build a foundation and be really, really good photographers?
Learn lighting backwards and forwards for
Yeah.
one. Really learn how to light, and again, shoot a lot. Just shoot and learn. Make a ton of mistakes. Don't put everything you've shot that you think is amazing on the internet. Like, learn from your work and get better and better each time you shoot. I mean, it's an education all the time. I still learn all the time. I make
Yeah.
mistakes and I learn from them. All the time.
It's all experimental, right?
And it keeps me I mean, I like the challenge of it. Otherwise, I probably would get bored and just go move on to something else more challenging. That's kind of how my nature.
Yeah.
But I think learning lighting is tantamount. I don't think you can call yourself a photographer if you don't see light.
Yeah.
I know it sounds very arrogant, but
No, it's true. I mean, the word photographer means recording light, right?
yeah.
So if you
Yes.
don't understand the thing that you're recording, you're doomed. Right?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
So
And I
let's-
don't think I can tell a photograph that's been lit in Photoshop. I can see it.
Yeah.
It's not authentic,
Yeah.
and I think it just diminishes the whole effect.
So what about I want to segue into breed in a second, but what about retouching? Where do you fall on that? Because some magazines claim that they don't retouch models when clearly it looks like they're retouched, and
Yeah.
is it taboo to retouch, or is it a means to an end to the final result?
My take on it is that retouching is good for fixing, a few things, but it's completely overused. And like I said, it's used a lot to fix things. And I think if you use Photoshop just to enhance a photograph, it's fine. But I say don't rely on it to make the photograph more outstanding. Do it like I learned on film as well, and you had to get everything in camera, or that was your shoot was fail.
Yeah,
So
it's gone. Yeah.
I still shoot that way. I shoot to try to make the photograph come out as best I can, and then use Photoshop to maybe clean up the skin a little bit, but yeah, not to go overboard and make it look like a doll or something.
Right.
I'm
And
not
we're
a
kind of
fan
in the
of it.
reverse now, right? I mean, it's like it sounds like you said, you shoot and you get it as close as you can possibly get to perfect in camera, and then smooth off the rough edges in software. And
Right.
and on the other hand, a lot of folks today will go the opposite result. They're like, you know what, I'll get it as, okay. I can shoot in RAW and I can do all this stuff, and I'll bring that in, and then I'm really gonna do the other half of the shot in software.
Right.
And I don't know. I mean, it depends on, it's all art, right? So it's all subjective. So it depends on what your end goal is. But yeah, it's different approaches.
Exactly.
Well, let's talk about breed. So breed is, first of all, give me the elevator pitch for breed. What is it? And who's it targeted at?
The elevator pitch. It's the ultimate online resource for emerging and aspiring fashion photographers, educational online resource. So it's I think it's the only one of its kind. Its aim is to educate the emerging and aspiring. We have some established photographers that are members on Breed as well. But I think it's really aimed for people that are starting out who want to get better, enhance their skills, learn. And we offer also aspects of the industry, for instance, retouching, how to retouch correctly, how not to throw, I don't do my own retouching, so I don't know the lingo too well, but like these what are they called? Plugins or
or presets.
where you can just presets, not to use presets, like to actually take the time to learn how to dodge and burn, like you did in the darkroom back in the day. And we teach about the business side, how to bid, how to estimate, how to get into modeling agencies, when are you ready to seek out a photography rep, what to look for in a photography rep, I teach lighting. I constantly try to push that down their throats, how important lighting is, by either doing BTS on my own photo shoots, or I put out 2 DVDs now, one with my old blog, and then now with advanced fashion photography lighting, another DVD, just all based on lighting.
Wonderful.
You know?
Yeah, it's all about the light.
We have other contributors that talk about, like we have new photographers that are talking about how hard it is. They've moved to New York and they're in the ditches, man, struggling like everybody else. Apparently, there's 70,000 fashion photographers in New York City. So,
wow. I mean, with that number, that's a good point. I mean, with that number of photographers and that level of competition, is there money to be made in fashion photography if you call yourself a fashion photographer?
I mean, there is, obviously, but you have to be resourceful. Yeah. And you have to, like myself with the blog and with Breed, I've had to put out seek out other avenues of income.
Yeah. Diversify, yeah.
Yes, diversify. That's the word I'm looking for. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. That's interesting. It's yeah, I mean, that's, we talked about the myths and the magic behind fashion photography. A lot of fashion people that are getting into it, I think they see the glitz and glamour, or the stereotypical press perception of a fashion photographer. And that's, New York City or LA, and, the photographer drives up in his or her Jag in the front, walks onto a hot set, and the model's already there. The assistant gives them a cup of coffee and their Leica. They take a couple shots and they zoom off to a party, So it's not like that? Is that what you're saying?
No. I mean, there's aspects of the industry that can be, there's parties and fashion shows and after parties, and I mean, there's an aspect of it that's sort of
glamorous,
bells and whistles, but it's a lot of work to get even to that point. I mean, that you're living in that life. And I think from what I've gathered and seen and have met with and talked to with other photographers, we can't be out partying every night. We've got to work the next day.
Yeah, you got to focus.
Even if you're not shooting. Yes, even if you're not shooting, you're going to market yourself. You've got to plan for the next shoot. I mean,
yeah.
But I guess if it's there if you want to touch it. It gets boring. For me, I was over that whole model party thing 20 years ago, 15 years ago.
Wow.
It was fun for a minute. When you're young, it's alluring, but when you get older, it's like,
Yeah, I'm done with that.
That's for me.
Yeah. So business-wise, Breed, educational resource for people wanting to get into or become professional fashion photographers. The industry is, changing, right? And the way people learn is changing. You look at lynda.com, this a couple weeks ago was acquired by LinkedIn for what, at 1.7 billion. Right. So, yeah, with a B, billion. Right. And they're I mean, arguably, they're not doing anything different than you are with Breed, only the markets that they serve is broad, everything from learning how to use Excel down to fixing a car or something. Right. And you're focused on fashion photography. Is this the way that photographers are going to be learning? If like the path of least resistance is to go to Melissa's site, go to breed.com, and that is the URL, right? Is it breed.com?
Yeah, it's jointhebreed.com.
Join the Breed. So should that be my first stop when I decide, hey, you know what? I'm serious about this. I want to learn how to be a fashion photographer, rather than let me go hunt down Melissa and beg her to be her apprentice for a while,
Yeah, right. Yes, I would strongly urge to go join the Breed before hunting me down. But, when I was starting out and I decided I wanted to be a fashion photographer, there were only like 4 colleges in the United States that were offering commercial photography curriculum. And nowadays there's like 1 in every city. In fact, even back then, you couldn't major in fashion photography per se. You just majored in photography. But now there's even fashion photography schools. There's so many with art institutes all over there's 1 in every major city, and all kinds of other photography schools. And, it's not cheap. They're 40, 50, 60,000. I know the school I went to, Art Center, back in the day, it was really expensive, and nowadays it's ridiculously priced. So, and I know for a fact that I've never had to present my diploma to a job interview, or no one has ever asked me, did you graduate from Art Center? I mean, I might have been asked, did you go to school? And I'll say, yeah, Art Center, but they've never said, did you graduate? Did you go through all 8 terms? You know, did you get that diploma? No one cares about the diploma. All they care about is your work.
Yep.
So I think that in lieu of spending all the money that we have to spend on our careers anyways, I think in lieu of having to spend for a pricey college education, it's not worth it anymore. Yeah. And you really learn hands-on. You learn by assisting. You learn by being out there and shooting and making mistakes and learning from them and moving on.
Right. Really.
So
good.
I do think Breed is the new way to go for education.
Right. Yeah, and it's in collaborative and all that. You can ask questions and yeah.
Well, not only are we teaching fashion photography, we're now branching out and we're expanding Breed, and we're now incorporating makeup and hair stylists and doing tutorials on how to do hair, how to do makeup, all centered around how to do hair on a fashion photography shoot, how to deal with the industry as a hairstylist. And we're going to be teaching hairstyle classes and makeup classes and styling classes, and how to break into the industry that way, and how to work with photographers from their vantage point. So it's kind of goes hand in hand, because obviously without the team, you have no photograph. I mean, I rely on hair, makeup stylists, art directors, prop stylists, set designers, assistants. You know, it's a big team, and we all work together to produce that photo shoot. You know, I just don't go show up with a camera and it's just magically appeared this great set with this beautiful model, and the clothing is, you know, immaculate. Yeah, I have to rely on my team to produce that. So we're
and that's
teaching that end of it as well.
A lot of photographers miss that, right? Because beginning photographers just assume that, hey, I get a camera and I kind of understand how to use it, and I get a pretty girl in a good location, I'm going to go shoot and make some photos, and it's not that easy.
What they're missing is they're getting the camera and they're getting the pretty girl, but we're fashion photographers. Yeah. So they need to get the pretty clothes, and they need to get the labels that are, you know, out there being sold. They need to understand that this is the business of fashion photography. It's not the business of shooting pretty girls photography. Yeah. You know, if they want to do that, there's other avenues. There's Playboy, Penthouse, and Maxim. I mean, if they want to shoot half-naked girls on the beach at magic hour, by all means, there's a niche market for that, but that's not fashion photography.
That's a good point, because a lot of people that do that, a lot of people that shoot nudes or, you know, those kinds of photos, scantily clad or whatever, they think that's fashion, and they call it fashion.
It's called glamour.
Glamour. Got it.
Sorry.
Sorry, Glamour Ray.
Sorry that it's bursting their bubble. That is not fashion photography.
So if the focus isn't on the clothes, it's glamour. If the focus is on the clothes, it's fashion. Got it. That's cool. Right. That is really cool. Yeah. All right, so let's wrap it up. Like, what's next for Melissa, and then what's next for the company, for Breed?
Well, like I said, with Breed, we're just expanding daily. We're, you know, incorporating the other members of the team and stepping up our game. And I mean, the company's grown pretty fast in the year and 4 months that we've been around. Yeah. 4 or 5 months we've been around. And, you know, we're going to be doing more lighting DVDs. We're coming up with a location lighting DVD, how to light on location using, you know, flash on location, you know, or, you know, reflectors and silks and that sort of thing to help light on location. We're doing more DVDs. We're offering more classes for hair and makeup styling. Yep. We're going to be doing styling DVDs as well. So
love it.
A lot on the horizon.
You guys took a good niche and you're just drilling down into it rather than spreading it wide and doing all these other different things.
That's right, exactly. And for myself, I mean, I'm just going to keep shooting. I'll probably die with a camera in my hands. I just don't see it ever ending.
Yeah. Well, let's end it with this. I'm curious. I mean, you've been shooting for a while. I'm curious what camera you settled on. What's your favorite go-to camera?
I've always been a very devoted Nikon fan. So right now I have the Nikon D800.
Mm-hmm.
And I am also, I mean, I've shot with Pentax, Mamiya, Hasselblad, Omega, the 4x5. I've shot with all kinds of different cameras. I have a Pentax 6.7, but I am looking at the Sony, believe it or not.
Oh, the A7 series, right?
Yeah, and they just released these new lenses that look dreamy. So I don't know. I want to get one in my hands and test it out, but I might kind of veer over there.
Very cool. That's interesting to know. Interesting. Yeah, I always like to ask that question because it's, depending on I mean, I'm sure you get it all the time too. People ask you, hey, what camera should I buy? And the answer is always, it depends. What are you shooting? What's your budget? Et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
So yeah, it's always interesting to see what photographers in different genres are choosing as their tool of choice because it's intimate, right? Your camera is like your horse. You're a cowboy with your horse. You got to choose correctly.
Yes.
So.
Yes, I have very strange and intimate relationship with my cameras, especially my lenses. My lenses are really near and dear to me. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. You shoot these shoots with them, and you've got memories, and this lens is the lens is more important to me than the actual body. But and with digital, I mean, I have to admit that I'm not a very technical person. So there's so many things on a digital camera that I don't even pay attention to,
Yeah.
I guess my assistants know more about it because they're in their 20s, but I see no use for 9/10 of the stuff on a digital camera. But anyways,
it all boils down to f-stops, shutter speeds, ISO, right? That's all you need.
Pretty much.
Yeah, if you know those things, and maybe a little, lighting and composition, but who cares about that stuff?
I had to learn about digital in the sense that I used to overexpose my film, and I had this sort of technique that I would use by overexposing and underdeveloping, and that all went out the window with digital. And I had to check my white balances a lot and my histogram because I was blowing out my white channels, but
Yeah,
I figured it out quick.
That was a remnant of film. That was what was that called? Pushing and pulling, right? Yeah. So yeah. Back in the day, all that's gone now. Yeah.
Remember the snip test? You'd get the snip test at the lab, and you'd look at that, and then you'd tell them how to run the rest of the
Yes. Yeah. All that. Yeah. Contact sheets. Remember contact sheets? Those are gone.
I do.
It's a new world, Melissa. It's a new world.
It is.
Well, thank you for coming on. I appreciate you letting me take a chunk out of your day to do this interview. I think it's been really inspirational and educational. So I appreciate it.
Wow, you're totally welcome, Frederick. Thank you so much for having me. It's been fun.
You're welcome.